Hi, I'm Jane Hilsden, marketing consultant and founder of Dragonfly Marketing. Welcome to this episode of the How to Do Marketing Show, a no-nonsense podcast about marketing for small business. It's our mission at Dragonfly Marketing to put marketing on the agenda for every regionally based small business in Australia. Why? Because we know that when marketing is done properly, it can help grow your business. We believe small businesses are the backbone of our nation. When your business grows, it benefits not only you and your family, it benefits your whole community. Small businesses create a vibrant and connected economy. We employ local people, we donate to local charities, and we work together to build resilient and thriving regional communities. The How to Do Marketing Show is a podcast just for you and your small business. Bursting with marketing insight and information, this show will be a fabulous resource to help you know all there is to know about the topic of marketing for small business. I'm really thrilled to be deep diving into the topic of search engine optimization, or SEO, with Sid Lal in this episode. Now, I'll be completely transparent here and tell you that a couple of weeks before I had this interview with Sid had very kindly taken the time to spend with me to convince me of the benefits of paying for ongoing SEO. It was one of those things for me that was wrapped in a bit of smoke and mirrors. It seemed to be a space where there was a lot of providers and not all of them, it seemed, could be trusted to deliver results. So I'd worked with an agency before on behalf of a client, and while I understood the monthly reports and the idea of increasing your Google ranking, the service itself never seemed to make a huge difference to our bottom line. So after talking to Sid, I can now understand why. Look, like anything in marketing, it really pays to ensure that you're dealing with a professional, an expert, and that is exactly what Sid is. So Sid's actually the CEO of Bruce Clay Australia, and this is a global digital marketing agency which is established in the USA, and it specialises in search marketing, SEO, Google Ads and paid search. He himself is a domain expert specialising in digital marketing. He has an MBA specialising in e-commerce from UTS, and he's a speaker and instructor at various industry forums, including TEDx and Adtech. So he's a serial entrepreneur, and he set up his first business when he was still studying at university. So in 2005, he used his digital marketing knowledge to transform his entire business from an offline model into an internet marketing powered inbound sales organisation, which translated into a $15 million in online sales for its channel partners. So guys, he is the real deal. He has a lot of passion for this area, and as you will hear, a lot of insight and great information about the world of SEO. So let's kick off. So Sid, what is SEO and why is it important for small businesses to consider?
All right. It's a great question to start. So SEO, from a fundamentals perspective, is about the process of optimizing a website so that it performs better on search engines. And what do I mean by that? It basically means that you want your web pages to appear at the top of search engines for targeted keyword queries. And that's an important part. It has to be targeted keyword queries.
Yeah.
And what that then results in is an increase in brand awareness and qualified traffic.
Yes.
And if you really think about it, today, everyone is using Google. Like,
Yeah.
you think about this, whether you want to rent a house, buy a house, get a job in this environment, you want to buy a TV, a phone, you want to come on holiday in Port Macquarie, you jump to Google. And that's what you do. And in fact, there's research in the United States, which I believe holds true worldwide, and that's 94% of all consumers research products online before they get into the buying phase.
Wow.
And that's where I really like Google, because it's an intent-based medium. So,
Yes.
you are and that's what differentiates it from so much that is out there, right?
Yeah.
Because someone has come on the internet, and not just on the internet, sorry, I mean on Google, with a
Yeah.
purpose.
Yes.
I think I was talking to you about this earlier as well, where I said one of the earliest things I remember from the early 90s is when Yahoo and all were promoting the search engines.
Yeah.
Their ad would have this girl with a buy sign on her forehead. And basically they were saying that, the consumers are there on the internet and they're looking to
Yes.
buy something. And so they were
Yeah.
trying to attract businesses to jump online.
Yes.
And that's why I really like Google, and the fact that, as a business, you can target people from all across, in marketing terminologies, the entire marketing funnel. You talk
Yeah.
about the top of the
Yes.
funnel, the middle of the funnel, and the bottom.
Yeah.
The top is where that awareness set is, and
Yeah.
in that we talk about that advertising principle, which is very famous, which is AIDA:
Yeah.
attention, interest, desire, and action.
Yeah.
And that's where, imagine someone wants to come to Port Macquarie for a holiday.
Yeah.
They don't know about your local business. Trust me,
Yeah.
they don't know who the local business is. But
No.
what do they know? They know that they are going to be coming to Port Macquarie, so they're going to do a generic search. So
Yeah.
on Google, they'll jump in and they'll type in, like maybe Port Macquarie hotels or Port Macquarie apartments,
Or
Airbnb in Port
restaurants,
Macquarie,
or yeah, things
restaurants,
to
what can you,
do.
nightlife,
Yeah.
things to do. Exactly. Yeah. Perfect. Things to do. And so in all of this, notice one thing: they're not searching for your business by brand name.
Yes.
They are searching for a generic query. So no one knows about your local business
Yeah.
because they're not there. And even
Yeah.
sometimes local residents don't know about the businesses.
No,
So they just
that's
jump
right.
in, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's when, if your business has some kind of an SEO strategy in place, has a web presence, you
Yes.
come into that target audience if your website is optimized, because suddenly you're on the first page of results and boom. So if your competitors are there, they're
Yeah.
getting that business that way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So the search engine optimization, the SEO, is essentially helping your website get found by people who are looking to buy what you sell, essentially.
Brilliantly said. Absolutely.
And when you say that kind of targeted keyword search, you're talking about exactly that. Someone has an intention to purchase something.
Yes.
So they go to Google and they put in their keyword, and it might not be a keyword, it might be a phrase, like you were saying before, things to do in Port Macquarie, or where do I find, such and such in Port Macquarie.
Like what's the taxi service in Port Macquarie?
Yeah.
Or, planning a wedding in Port Macquarie, wedding planners in Port Macquarie, buy a investment property in Port Macquarie, holiday apartments. Like the list can go on and on and on, right?
Depending on who it is and what they're looking for. So then that search engine optimization, something has to be done, essentially, is what you're saying, on your website to actually make sure that you are turning up in those searches, which leads to my next question, which is, what exactly, so we know that we need to optimize our website to get found. People are searching. Yep. We need to make sure that our website's coming up in those search results. Can you explain exactly what's involved with SEO? Like what are the kind of functionalities of SEO that if a business goes, well, yeah, actually my website's not being found, I want it to be found. What's this SEO? What's exactly involved?
Sure. Before I get into that, I also want to add one more point to that previous question. So one of the other big things I really believe that why small businesses should really consider, getting found on Google is also because of the fact that how the internet has sort of become a very big leveler. You think about it, in the offline traditional way, what would happen is you, as a small business, you would need to invest in a shop. Now, what does that mean? You would need to pay a security deposit. You would need to furnish the shop, paint it, create an ambience. So you think about it, that's a huge investment. And it comes with a big limitation. It's a local geographic area, right? So you are only, so if you are, say, in Port Macquarie, you're only servicing the people, and not even Port Macquarie, you're only servicing someone in a very local zone. Like it could be a 5 kilometer radius or 2 kilometer. It depends on what you're selling. Someone might come maximum 10, 15 kilometers if you're really great. But that's about it. But this is where the website becomes different. So the investment cost is significantly lower. Yes, there is an investment. You really need to make the investment, because if you think, oh, it's easy, I'll just pay someone a few $100s, throw up a website, and I'm in business. 20 years ago, yes, it's still possible. But today, that's not the case. You still need to make the investment, right? But the fact now is that you can now target a worldwide audience. You can be, and also previously as a business, if you're setting up a shop, it really had to be something really big, something that everyone's looking at buying. Today with a website, that's the other thing for small businesses to consider: niche targeting. If you have a very specific hobby, I don't know, growing hamsters, I don't know, something, right? You could have a worldwide audience, and therefore, because these worldwide people are everywhere, small people, target audiences, but they are all coming to your website with one click. So I love this saying, you're on the internet, everyone is just one click away from you.
Yes. 100%.
So and now I'll get into your second question, which was, what's
involved? What is SEO? What happens with it?
Now I'm going to give you two explanations for it. One is the easy one is, on a basic level, SEO is really super simple, like on a basic level, right? There are three main things that you want to keep in mind. The first one is on-page stuff. When I say on-page, I'm talking about the content of your website, having keywords, having meta tags, headings, a clean, good website, user experience, stuff like that, all the basic stuff. On the technical side of things, which is your second part, you want to make sure your site is well architected in terms of, the code is nice and simple, Google understands it, your website loads up fast, it's secure, the architecture is there, stuff like that. And then on the third part, it's the off-page stuff, which is brand building, is how I like calling it. It's more popularly known in other terms as link building, but I strongly dislike that term because it's associated with some shady practices and stuff. I prefer using the word brand building, just like in the offline world. You're getting and what that means is getting third-party websites linking to you, right? Or even
third-party websites, like what? Like what kind of third-party websites?
So, okay, I'll get more technical on this a little bit later. So this was the basic explanation. So on the basic level, these are the main three things, and anyone can get their website up, ready, and optimized, right?
Cool.
Now, on a more complex level, I like to say SEO is like rocket science. And I truly believe that had I become maybe a doctor or something, I would have studied for those 2, 3, or say 5 years. And that would have been, you're sort of like done with it. You understand it. But with SEO, you're constantly having to evolve. You're constantly having to learn, because Google is constantly changing. You think about it, 20 years ago, there were 10 search results on the first page of Google. Today also there are 10 search results on Google. But what has changed? What has changed is the fact that 20 years ago, if there were 100 businesses in your local area on a particular subject, right? Today, there are like literally tens of thousands. And if we talk about a generic item, like if you're selling a mobile phone or something, or TV or electronics, or real estate, there are literally hundreds and hundreds of millions of other websites that are competing for the same thing. So you think about the intensity. I also like to sort of compare it to the Olympics, right? Where people, someone, and I get this question all the time, like, oh, I've got a site. How soon can I be on the first page of Google? Can I get there immediately? And I like to tell them that, look, just like in when you're racing, etc., when you start off, it's like a newborn baby. Your website has just been born. What gives you the right to think I'll be on the first page of Google within 3 months or 6 months, right? You need to go through the process. You need to build your muscles. You need to have the proper nutrition. You need to do the training. You need to participate in races at various levels until you prove yourself, and then you get into that final race, right? And that's the same thing here. And that's where SEO gets complex. Google has got 300 main variables, and then there are thousands of sub-variables involved in their algorithm, and no one knows that algorithm.
No.
It's a secret sauce, right? And that's where it's also constantly being updated. Google says that they have made over 800 updates each year to that algorithm, where they're testing out certain things. And if you think about it, it's constantly changing, because previously there was no such thing called structured data, or the page speed was not that big an issue. Security was not that big an issue, right? So things were changing.
But now it is. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So the Google algorithm has evolved considerably. Today you've got things like, so initially it was that page rank algorithm which was there, but today you've got the knowledge graph, the hummingbird, the rank brain, the BERT, all these things. I know most of them are like, and then there are the penalties, right?
Oh gosh, and if people could see my face right now, I'm pulling oh my goodness, that this is like so technical. There's so many words that I've never heard of, but I guess your point is that it is a highly technical space, and there are so many nuances, I guess, that are changing.
Exactly.
Evolving, and so you can't just set and forget your website. You can't just write the copy, put the pictures in, write a blog post or two, and then hit live and go, okay, I'll just sit here and wait for that to go to the top of the page.
That's not going to happen. Absolutely. But again, like I said, if it was 20 years ago, you would have been lucky, and you could have gotten up there. But then it would take some time. And then there are also the Google, talking about the evolution of Google, there's also all the penalties that Google has come through with, right? Because Google understood that people were gaming its algorithm. So 20 years ago, one of the key things, so going back a little bit of trivia, I'll throw this in just to make it more interesting. Did you know that in 1998, when sort of Google was conceived by Sergey Brin and Larry Page from their Stanford dormitory, first of all, it came about because they couldn't order a pizza online very well, and they were really pissed off about it. And Yahoo was the top search engine at that point of time. So these two guys came up with a better way. And back then, Yahoo, what it did was just basically match the keywords on the page, and whoever had the maximum number of keywords. So let's say if you were trying to rank for real estate, and if you had got real estate 10 times on your page, and another website had real estate 15 times, they would outrank you. That was how simple it was.
Really?
Right?
Interesting. Yeah.
So then Google came about, and these two guys, they invented this algorithm, which was based on link popularity as one of the big items, right? So other websites voting, and think of link popularity as a vote, right? Yeah. So just like like the polling, it's the politicians get elected, whoever's got the maximum number of votes wins. Same thing happened in this phase. And Google created this, and they went and presented this to Yahoo. And they only asked for $1 million in 98, and Yahoo could have bought them.
Wow.
Yahoo kicked them out. And that was the most expensive, I think, mistake in history, right?
Ouch. Yeah.
Hundreds of billions of dollars later.
Oops.
So that was the trivia part. And then, so Google, when it first came out, it was called the PageRank algorithm. And now they've got all these penalties because Google understood that people were sort of gaming the system. All they needed to do was get a huge bunch of links, and they would come on top, like apart from the little bit of on-page stuff and all. Right. So Google invented what's called the Panda and the Penguin and the Pigeon and the pirate updates and page layout and all of that. Most of them are black and white animals, as you can see, Panda, the Penguin, right? And these were just different penalties that they came out with to stop people from gaming the system.
And what does a penalty look like? So if you get a panda penalty or whatever it is,
or the penguin,
whatever it is now, penguin, what happens?
All right. So the penguin is probably the most famous one because that's more geared towards links. So the penguin penalty was around links. And basically what Google said was, if you are getting a ton of links, and these are low quality links, or these are non-theme related links, they would penalize you, and the penalty meant that you were no longer on page 1. They would sort of demote you to like a page 10 or a page 20.
Whoa.
And yeah, and there's a joke in SEO that the best place to hide a dead body is
on page 2.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Even you know that, right? That
I
joke.
know that joke.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So here you've gone to like page 10, page 20, whatever. So you're gone. You're out, right? And this was basically to do with links, because people, all they were doing was just getting all these low quality links from any directory, from anywhere, and it could be doesn't even have to be sort of related to your theme, right? So they would. I know that people, what they were doing were, for example, they would write one article, and then they would spin it and put it in 20 different places, that exact same article, just change a few words here and there. And I have seen some shocking pieces in my time. I've seen people who have written an article about X, and from there they've just inserted one word which is totally not theme related, and then linked it back to the website, and they were getting all these links, and Google was powering them up in actually, right? And so they were ranking.
Yeah, and that from Google's point of view, you can see that obviously they don't want that to happen, because the person who's searching for a result ends up getting results that potentially are not what they want or what they need, because they've been falsified, essentially.
Exactly.
And so then they start to not use Google because they don't trust the results that are coming into their search results. So
yes, and that's what Google really, and that's exactly why Google is so worried about that first page, because that needs to be very, very high quality.
People need to trust
and
it.
therefore these penalties came about, and basically the penguin penalty, which is the most famous one, was about the links. And I think I also talked to you about one of the really good examples. I really love that. It's called that Decor My Eyes. I don't know whether you ever searched it up when we spoke about it. This was a guy who was selling in the US. He was selling eyewear, sunglasses and stuff like that. And he realized that Google, the power of links. So what he did was he would send faulty eyewear to his customers. The reason for that was he would want people to put a bad review about him. And link to him. Yeah, because at that time, Google didn't understand the sentiment. Exactly. So he figured out a way to get links, very, very sneaky. So all he did was he kept sending out all these bad sunglasses and stuff. He would get all these bad links coming through, and his ranking just went up and up and up.
But then didn't people see the bad reviews? Like, so yes, okay, you get to page 1, but then once they're there and they go onto your site, don't they just see all of these rubbish reviews?
No, because on the site, he's not showing his bad reviews. He's just showing great sunglasses and whatever else. And he would, and to the point that one day he had this customer who just wouldn't give him a bad review. And he kept harassing this lady. To the point where he finally used Google Street View, took a picture of a house and sent it to her and said, "I'm coming for you."
Oh my God.
At this point, this lady went to the cops, filed a complaint, and the rest is history. He got arrested. It was published on the newspapers, and Google then understood what had happened, and they were forced to take action. And that's when they sort of built in this negative links, like, the sentiment around links, etc. And therefore no longer is a negative link going to help you. Similarly, if it's not theme related, it's not going to help you. And Google has now built it into the algorithm. So previously, and that's the other big difference. Previously, a penalty would be manual, and you would come to know about it. But now Google is laughing away, because what it's done is it's built it in the algorithm itself. So you have all these agencies who might be doing all this work, and you're thinking they're doing all this work, but it's not going to pay off, and they don't even know about it. So you're just burning your money.
So wow, that's really fascinating history in terms of where kind of Google has I guess, where a lot of the decisions that Google has made to ensure that the platform can be trusted to deliver the content that people are looking for. So you said there's the brand building, because as you said, we don't want to be thinking about link building because it makes people do silly things like take Google Street View pictures and threaten to kill people. The on page, which is making sure all the copywriting and your headings and your meta tags, and that's something that predominantly your website developer will have a little bit to do with as well. And then there's the domain authority, or how popular the website is, or how
that's right. So
how much attended. So what's the difference then between SEO and pay-per-click advertising? Because a lot of people, if they've spent some time in Google, they would have actually seen, the sponsored listings up the top. Yep. And then there's what we call organic listings, which are the non-paid listings that are on page one, and they generally tend to sit under the sponsored listing and under the kind of Google My Business or Google Places listings. So what's the difference? Because I think there's a lot of people that get the two mixed up, because pay-per-click advertising is not the same as SEO, is it?
No. So the difference is, like you actually put it really well, right? When you said that, look, up the top is the sponsored ads, right? And Google has been constantly experimenting with that. They've had small AdWords written like AD, sometimes they put sponsored. They used to gray out the area on top initially. Now but then they realized that people sort of could make out the difference, and they wanted to sort of blur that difference, because think about it, how does Google make money? It does not make money from people doing SEO and organic search. It makes money from the paid search,
That's right.
Right? And therefore they wanted to blur this difference, and therefore, so initially back in the day, the ads, the first one or two ads would be very well colored. They would even have a yellowish kind of background. I remember they would be labeled very well that, hey, this is a sponsored ad and all of that. Today, if you see, that's all gone. And the other biggest difference happened about a couple of years ago. So previously, Google would have most of the ads on the right side of the page.
Yeah.
And on the top, there would be maximum of one ad or so, and that was it. Today that has changed. Google has understood. No one goes, how is English read? It's read from left to right. So your eye scans from left to right. So no one reached that right side, right? And no one was clicking on those ads. So, and because they only had one or so ad on the top, they weren't making as much money. Today they've changed that. And now if you see, they've got no ads on the right. All the ads are on the top and bottom, and the organic is squeezed in between. So sometimes, now obviously depending on the nature of the query, if it's a very commercial query, you will get even 3 ads right on top of the page, even 4 maybe sometimes. And if it's not that commercial, then it will be maybe a 1 ad, or sometimes there are no ads, rarely, and it's purely organic search. So that's sort of the difference in terms of the paid search. And also in terms of paid, what I also want to talk about a little about is the fact that paid search, which is Google, can be in terms of the search network where people are searching itself, so on Google itself. But also people don't realize this, there's also the Google display network, where your ads as a brand or even as a small business can appear even on third-party websites. So this could be the Sydney Morning Herald, it could be the New York Times, it could be a third-party blogger who's talking about so let's say if someone is in your local area, in Port Macquarie as an example, and they have a blog about the 10 best places to visit in Port Macquarie. And how do the bloggers generally make money? It's through the Google AdSense program, where they get money for people clicking on their ads. So your ad gets placed exactly in something that is related to what you're doing. And so that's the other part. That's the Google Display Network. Then there is the remarketing side of things as well, where your ads can follow people once they've come to your website and go to third-party sites. And through all of this, Google is able to reach, in fact, 90% of the worldwide audience in terms of website coverage. And then you can also do YouTube. Remember, YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world, right? And you can even have your ads on YouTube. All this through Google. So you can do all this, and that's the thing. And I would tell people, don't forget about other platforms like Bing, Facebook, LinkedIn, Quora. So it depends on your target audience. Now, coming into the difference between SEO and PPC. The first one I would say is, which we have sort of covered, it's the coverage in terms of clicks. So paid search normally gets between 15 to 40% of all the clicks on the page, right?
Interesting.
Depending on the query. And SEO normally gets between 60 to 80% of the clicks. Again, depending on the query. So if you had asked the same question to me about 3 years ago, before this right rail, before the ads went totally to the top, I would have said 85% of the clicks are organic and 15% are paid, right? But today that has sort of changed and become bigger. The other difference is the cost.
Yes.
SEO is really free in the sense, if you're doing do-it-yourself DIY SEO, the only thing you're investing is your time.
Is the
right?
time. Yeah.
So there is no money involved, right? You can write your content, you can write meta tags, you can do on-page optimization, all of that, right? But in paid search, there is an investment. Without investment, you will get zilch, right?
Yes.
Nada, zero, nothing, right? That's what you will get. So that's one big difference between SEO and PPC. The other is from a DIY perspective. While in SEO, there is no wastage of money because you're just investing your time. But in paid search, even though you can do it yourself, but you can waste a ton of money. And ask me, I learned it the hard way, like 15, 20 years back when I set up my first website. I did it all by myself initially, and there weren't too many people around either. There were no courses and nothing. And I wasted a lot of money right in the beginning because I didn't understand the power of negative words in paid search, right? And how you could eliminate all that wastage. And today it's evolved so much more. So that's your other difference, is in terms of DIY and wasting money. The third one is time frame. Paid search is instant. Absolutely. You tell me today you want leads.
Great point.
You will get leads today, right? But SEO is a long-term investment. I like to say, think of SEO like fine wine. The longer you invest in it, the better it gets. Right? That's what SEO is. So you've taught the time frame is a long-term horizon, but paid search is instant. You get it right now. In terms of even the size of the website is something else I like to talk about.
Okay.
In paid search, you can have one landing page and you're in business. You'll get it, right? So you don't have to make such a big investment. You can just have one landing page and you're done. But in SEO, one landing page is going to do you nothing. So if you've got a one-page website, mate, nothing's going to happen there. Right? You need many pages at the very least, right? And then you need to have a blog to get the freshness factor and all of that in as well.
That's really interesting. And because one of the questions that I wanted to ask you is, when does a small business know to invest in SEO? Because as you said, it is a longer term investment. It does take a little bit longer to kind of kick in. And as you said, it's not just, you don't shell out the money for ads, or you don't shell out the money in terms of paying for it. You will shell out the money to an SEO provider if you're not actually going to do the SEO work yourself. And as you said, from the answer from the second question, when we talked about what's involved in SEO, it's clearly quite technical. And obviously, if the bigger the website and the bigger the business and the bigger the market, I would imagine. So, something that I noticed, Sid, locally is, in Port Macquarie, if a business is literally just servicing the Port Macquarie region, if they have that kind of on-page SEO, if the website developer has set up that page so that there are good keywords within the copy and the content, the headlines are right, the meta tags are there, there's a little bit of a flow of dynamic content, it is quite easy to get your page to page one. So if I search for lawyer Port Macquarie or financial planner Port Macquarie, if the website's been set up well, you probably don't need to pay for ongoing SEO. You don't even really need to pay for pay-per-click Google advertising. However, if you want to expand out, as soon as you want to go outside of the region, bang, you've just increased your competitors by about 1 billion %.
Yes.
So,
exactly.
So what are some of the things, when are some of the signs? Because I think that you make a really good point. There's plenty of small businesses that do just have a one page or even a couple of pages for their website. when do you know it's, SEO might be right for your small business?
Um, I think the way you framed the question, you've answered most of it yourself, right?
Only from your answers from previously.
There's not much for me to say on that. You said it, that look, the indication for small business is the fact that, look, you would do some basic SEO, like you said, which is you would have the on-page stuff, you would need to have the titles, you would want to have the keywords, you want to have the descriptions, you want to have headings in place, the content should flow, like you said, from page to page, you should have enough content around the topic, you would want to, very importantly, build out a page for each of your services as well. So if you're lawyer, Port Macquarie, right? But what is it, Kirk? Are you doing, say, commercial as well as divorce law, as well as criminal? You would want to have pages around each of those. So it would depend a lot around those things. And then, yes, it is fair. I would say it's easier, much easier for local searches compared to, like you said, anything which is much bigger and the competition gets much tougher. But even there, let me put it this way. Now, lawyers might be an interesting one you gave, where you said that's easy. But now let's take the case of a restaurant, right? And you would think, okay, a restaurant, so local competition. So what are all the local restaurants? So if there's, say, 300 restaurants in your local area, then those are the only 300 that are competing with you, right?
Yeah.
And then again, when you come into niches, right? So,
Thai or
yeah, exactly, exactly. Thai, Italian, it gets easier still, right? Because the number of restaurants competing decreases. But remember, now you also have all these massive portals and aggregators like Manylog, Deliveroo, Uber Eats, right? So, and that's what people have to think about. The competition
so true.
is, and these sites are very powerful. So they will outrank you. Not only that, you will also have, now you think about newspapers and local news, etc., because they will have coverage. So I know the Sydney Morning Herald or the Australian would be writing about local things to do in Port Macquarie, or restaurants to go to, or the 5 best restaurants in Port Macquarie, right? You've got these websites which are competing against you. So now these are the massive newspapers. So they will take, so remember, you've got those 10 results on Google. Now, 3-4 of them have gone to Uber Eats and all of them. TripAdvisor is another big one there. So TripAdvisor has taken another thing. Then you've got all these newspaper sites that have come and taken in things. There will be some 1 or 2 great restaurants who will have those rankings steady because they've just got so much of brand coverage. They're doing a great job, and therefore even these other newspaper sites are linking to them. And then you've got the bloggers who write about, travel blogs and stuff. So I think it does, even within the local business, it's no longer local. Yeah, sure, lawyers is probably one of those segments, like newspapers are not covering them too much. They don't have these big portals doing stuff, right? So maybe they are protected from that perspective. Which is really sad. Lawyers don't need protection.
They do when it comes to their marketing.
But when you compare it to other niches like restaurants and all, it's no longer only the local. You're talking so many other factors that come in. So and therefore there's the difference between online competition and offline competition. So in the traditional world, the offline competition for a restaurant will be just the other restaurants right next to you. But in the online world, you've got all these other guys who are also.
So as a small business, Sid, can we ever compete with that? Like I see that happen a lot in the accommodation industry. So I've worked with a few accommodation providers locally, and obviously the directories for accommodation have been around for years and years, and that's what we used to come up with all the time, like the what ifs, etc. And there's a billion of them, as you said. They're all there. What can we compete with them?
Yes, you can, but again, it is an ongoing thing. It will take time now, and that's where the beauty is in terms of that SEO versus PPC thing that we were going through. The beauty of SEO is that once you've made that investment and you keep working on it for a while, and you reach the first page of Google, you will generally get to keep those results for yourself for a while, right? At least for a while, even if you stopped making that investment in SEO, right? So let's say you were in a really crazy competitive space, and it took you 2 years to get to the top of the first page. You will at least be there for a while, but because of crazy competition over a period of time, it will sort of diminish. But that's where you want to do maintenance related stuff. So for example, if Google has now come up with structured data, so you need to go in and make sure your website gets updated for structured data. Or if 3 years ago when you were doing your SEO and page speed was not that big a thing, today you want to make sure page speed is a big part of your website.
Yeah, right.
So those kind of things will need to happen. But on the other hand, with paid search, if you stop making an investment, boom, your leads stop coming through. It's like turning on and off a tap, right? So you stop the money, the water stops flowing.
Yes.
Same thing happens. Your leads stop coming through.
True.
So that's your other big difference between SEO and PPC. And what I want to say is that, look, I really think both these strategies work hand in hand. They work together. You should be looking at doing both of them, because PPC gets you that instant boost, and SEO will take time. So if you want leads, if you want customers coming to your site, you want to invest in both. Get the PPC stuff happening, so you start getting those leads. Now, once those leads have reached a certain stage, and let's say in 6 months, especially if you're a local business like we were talking about and the competition is lesser, and let's say in 6 months you're already on the first page of Google and you're starting to get results from there, so you can then look at how you want to cater your marketing budget. You might want to start dropping a little bit on the paid search, right, and keep investing in SEO and all of that. So that's how they work hand in hand. The other thing I like to do is I also like to say that to my clients that, guys, if you can invest in both, do it, because you know what, you're keeping competition off. So think about it. People look at that first page, and especially now when we're going towards mobile devices, right? So if you can have your ad up there, so you're pushing your competition lower by having your ad and your own SEO. So if you've got one ad spot and one solid SEO spot, you have already pushed anyone else to a much lower position, and sometimes even off the page, because then you can, I would love to say that you can own the entire first page of Google, because you could sort of take over some ads, you take over the organic search, you add some social media, so your Facebook, your LinkedIn and stuff like that, and you've pretty much, and that also means that you've also protected yourself from an ORM, which is online reputation management perspective. You've pushed your competitors' influence off, right? And because you've got multiple ways of getting your clients through, you have increased the chances of conversion. So I think they all work hand in hand.
So if we're talking kind of numbers, and this might be how long is a piece of string, but you know, for a small business, how long generally as a guideline does it take to start seeing some results from SEO? And by results, I mean, you know, your page starts to rank higher and preferably on page one for your desired search terms.
Okay. So like you said it, how long is a piece of string? But what I would suggest is, look, at least give it 6 months, right? If you're really, really lucky and you don't have that much competition, maybe you're a very strong niche or something, you could start seeing results even in 3 months, right? But that would be an absolute best case scenario. But it also depends on the speed of implementations and how much you work, etc. So those factors will also start kicking in. How strong is your competition? All those things. So 6 months is how I would say for a local business is a decent time frame to start seeing results. But then again, if you talk about certain local niches, like I said, restaurants, it could even be longer, because if your competition is very strong, right, then pushing someone like a TripAdvisor is probably not going to happen. But pushing, say, maybe another restaurant off the page, maybe within 6 months to 12 months of sustained effort, you can get there. And then like I said, the good thing is once you're there, it's free money. You're raking it in, because once you're there, you then start getting all these leads. But that brings me to another thing, which I think you might even have sort of mentioned to me as well, which was, when do you stop doing SEO? Right. And I like to say that, look, really speaking, it doesn't stop, right? Because if you think about it, once you reach the first page of search results, you might just be on the top, on the 10th position or the 9th position.
Yeah.
And now this is where there's some really interesting statistics here. On the 10th position, you'll only get about 2% of the clicks, right?
Yep.
But if you can suddenly take this from the 10th position to, say, maybe the 7th position, you will start getting about 6% of the clicks. Now,
Right.
just there, even though it's just gone from 2% to 6%, but if you think about it, that's a 3x improvement in terms of the number of leads coming to your, or traffic coming to your
That's
website, right?
right. Yep.
So your SEO now, and then once you've tasted that success of going from that 10th position to the 7th, you say, hey, let me keep working on this. And from 7th, you get into the 3rd position. Now, suddenly you are in that first scroll, right? First, second, third position, you're at the 3rd, and you're now probably getting about 12% of the traffic, right?
Yeah.
And then once you hit that first position is getting anywhere from 20 to 40% of the traffic, depending on how strong the brand, etc. is, right?
Wow.
So you're getting 10x more traffic than on that 10th position. So,
Wow.
once you've got to that first page of Google, you're still continuing with your SEO. And that's just one keyword. Then you talk about all the other variations, because even when you talk about, say, restaurant, people could be searching for, say, Italian restaurant. Then they might be searching for Italian restaurant plus maybe a suburb. They might be searching for lunchtime Italian restaurant, dinner, party. There's so many different combinations so you can keep on doing SEO if you really want to, and you wouldn't want it to stop. And the other part is competition. Your competitors are not going to be happy getting kicked off. So if a restaurant was on that first page and you took the spot from them and they stopped getting all this free traffic, but they know they're closed, right? They're let's say you've just pushed them to page 2. They're going to do everything to come back in because they've already experienced
So it's
success.
an ongoing cycle. Yes. I was going to say it would be incredibly addictive. Like if you get to position 1 on page 1 and you go from like 2% of clicks to 40% of clicks, best case scenario, you're going to be really hesitant to. And as you said, it might have a bit of a tail to it. If you don't do it for a couple of months, you might be able to maintain that position. But as you said, if competitors come in and start becoming more aggressive, then that's going to affect your ranking. So I guess what you're saying is you might need to invest a bit more heavily in SEO in the beginning to kind of get you to that ranking. But then it's probably a good idea to stay in maintenance mode after that.
Absolutely.
And particularly, my goodness, if you're getting 40% of those clicks and they are qualified leads, you would imagine that that's a great return on investment, and that's exactly the decisions as marketers we make. What's bringing us a decent return in terms of our investment? Something's bringing that kind of return, you keep that one on the marketing budget.
In fact, I wanted to talk about that point, but you've covered it now. That again, that's the difference between SEO and PPC. That that return on investment, it's you keep on getting that. So you have to think of it as what is the lifetime value of your client as well. If they're going to keep coming back. So that's the other thing.
That's exactly right. Now, this is something SEO. Again, if this is something that businesses go, yep, okay, I need to invest in that. I don't have the technical skills. I don't have the time. I'm going to have to go to an SEO provider. There's a bunch of SEO providers out there. There's a bunch of SEO providers that probably aren't taking their clients on the journey with them, because there's a whole bunch of small businesses out there that have invested in SEO or are investing in SEO, and they just have no idea whether it's actually working or not, or how to read the reports, or whether they're actually, investing in something that is bringing them a return or whatever. So if people want to go out and find a supplier, what are some of the questions that they can ask, or some of the signs that they can look for to ascertain whether they're getting an SEO supplier that will actually do a good job?
Okay, so in terms of looking for a good SEO agency, some of the questions I would ask and look for. See, you're right that there are a ton of suppliers out there, and they range in terms of what they can do, because today you even have millennials who have just gone to college, got a degree, and they think, hey, this is easy, let me do it. and they start a business, digital marketing, and they're doing SEO. Maybe for some easy things, they might even be able to get results, but also they might not do the right thing. So there's something called white hat and black hat SEO. I don't know whether you've heard of it, but it's very popular. And black hat SEO is where you take shortcuts. You're trying to sort of game Google to get rankings, and therefore you know, talking about those links, you know, you'll try to get links in from link farms and other stuff, and try to get better rankings, and that might not sort of happen. So you want to be talking about white hat versus black hat. So you have to be understanding the difference. The second is, how long has the agency been in business? That's another sort of indicator, because if they've only been recent, right, then they won't have the experience that is required to sort of go through this. The other thing is the number of people, because SEO is not really a one-man job, because you see, you've got the technical side of SEO, you've got the brand building off-page and creative side of SEO, you've got the on-page content writing side of SEO. So there's so many different aspects involved that normally a one-person agency is not really the right agency for you. You need a whole team of people working behind the scenes to get the SEO right. These team members also very important to show. You can have a team, but these team members also need to have experience, right? You need at least 5 to 10 years of being in the industry to have seen everything that is going on for you to be able to do some great stuff. And again, I'll qualify that by saying that, look, depending on how strong the niche is, how much competition there is, the easier ones, you know, you can get better, but as the competition gets tougher, you do need an agency that is got all these strong qualities in place. So the other thing you can look for is, with your agency, have they got thought leadership? Are they speaking at events? Are people inviting them to do, for example, this podcast as an example, right? Or speaking at other events? Have they won any awards? Do they have case studies? That's another good one. Do they rank for their own brand? And I would say, don't sign long-term contracts with agencies. What you can do, but think about it this way, that look, you know that SEO is going to take time. So you should make that right decision of saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to give them at least 6 months, right? And then depending on how strong the competition is, if you're going for a crazy keyword, then it could take a year or 2 years. But you can keep measuring the results. And I'll talk a little bit about those measurement of results. In terms of what you can do is, you can look at your keyword rankings.
Yeah, and is that the main metrics that people should be looking at, is the keyword rankings, or where they rank for certain keywords or key phrases?
Yes, so exactly. So from how do you measure? Because see, if SEO is going to take time, but that's fine, but you're not going in blind. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
You can measure stuff. So what you can do, and it also, we talk a little bit about guarantees over here. A lot of agencies just give guarantees. Even Google has said that no one can give you a guaranteed first page results, right?
Right.
So because A, you don't own Google, so you don't know the secret sauce. B, even you don't own what the client is going to do, because you might say we are going to do all these things and the client just doesn't get around to it, doesn't do it. Their website is not capable for it, right?
Or and the competition.
And third is the
really
competition,
aggressive.
right?
Yeah.
You are investing, say, $500 a month, and your competition is investing $2,000.
Yeah.
So all those reasons why. But yeah, coming back to the metrics of how I would measure, I would say, okay, I know I'm going to give time to the agency, but let's make sure they're giving me monthly reports which show what has been done. So one, look for a work done report,
yes,
which shows what are all the different items they worked on, right? And you should be able to see everything. There is nothing which is black magic. See, that's the best thing. SEO is an art and a science, right? So you know that these things were done. If keyword research was done, you will have a keyword research you can look at. You can see what keywords were picked up. Have they been put in your tags? So the titles, descriptions, you can see them on the page. So all that is work done. You can see that. The second is, you're looking at those keyword rankings, and you can see how they're progressing over a period of time. So when you start your SEO project, you should sit down with your provider and maybe say, okay, I know there'll be loads of keywords, but let's look at these 15, 20, or whatever, 100 keywords that are very important for me, right? Let's write them down, find out where the rankings are today, so you have a benchmark.
Yes.
Now, at the start of the project, you know that for, say, Italian restaurant in Port Macquarie, I was on the 35th position as an example when we started the project. Now, 6 months later, if you want to measure, you know, oh, I'm at 17th. That's great.
Yeah.
And it's not just that the agency has given you a report. You can, all you have to do is jump on Google and type that in, right?
Yeah.
And search for it. Now, you do keep in mind that Google personalizes the results. So what you want to do is open a incognito mode browser and look for your result then, because otherwise you will see yourself much higher.
Yes.
So that's the other thing you can do. So track your rankings for keywords that are important. And that's the most important part.
Yeah.
The keywords need to be the right keyword for you, right?
Yeah.
If you track them, you can see you're progressing in the right direction.
Yeah.
And thirdly, if you're progressing in the right direction, your traffic is going to go up. So that's your other metric, right? Traffic. Now, but there is one caveat on that. Remember, page 2 doesn't get you traffic. So even if I'm doing a fantastic job, and listen, it's happened to me many times, right? I've told the client, hey, you're progressing. This is what it is. You can look at it, right? Here are a bunch of keywords that we said they were important for you. And we have now taken this bunch of keywords, which you were, say, at 50th position when we started. And now they are at, say, 15th position or 12th position. But at that point, also there's going to be no traffic to the client's site. And therefore, you're not going to see, the client's not going to see an ROI. But he is just that close from getting all this traffic. Once they hit page 1. And so that's your thing.
And that could be an example from when you said, like, while you're waiting to get from 15th position, up to 7th position to at least get on page 1 or 10th position. That's where you might start considering paying for Google Ads, pay for click, so to actually get your paid listing up the top while you wait for that SEO.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. Now, Sid, you obviously work for an organisation that does do this SEO for businesses. Can you tell our listeners all about Bruce Clay? And you've actually got a little something for listeners today that they can go and download to help them better understand this SEO. Is that right?
That's right. So our agency, which is called Bruce Clay, started in 1996 in California. And we've got offices in a few different countries. Australia is one of them, Middle East, Europe, etc. Others. We've been doing it for 20 years. And in fact, a quick thing, if your listeners typed in Google father of SEO, they should come up with our company name, Bruce Clay, because he's the guy who coined the term SEO. So he's known in our industry circles as the granddaddy of SEO. Nice. We have also written the Dummies series, those yellow colored dummy series books. So Search Engine Optimization for Dummies. So the full word, it's available on Amazon. It's a 800-page book. If you really care to read it, you can do that. And in terms of what we have, your listeners can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Search for Sid Lal, SIDLAL, Sid Lal, on LinkedIn. Connect with me and ask me for my digital marketing tips. It's a small book. It's nothing great, just 10-15 pages. Gives you some tips, gives you some great tools to use, because whether you do SEO, PPC without tools, you really can't do much. You need those tools. I say that, SEO is like doing brain surgery with hammer and tongs if you're doing it without tools, right? So you can do that.
Oh, I'll be reaching out for sure. That sounds great.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the time. And also, just a very, very quick one.
Yes.
You had mentioned, your listeners would like to know about a case study. So I'll just give you a minute on that.
Yes.
Because it's also it's a local example I want to give that. So we were working recently with a chain of restaurants. It's called Peanut Street Noodles. And they have got 11 restaurants across Sydney, Brisbane, and Sunshine Coast. And a year ago, they set up their site, which was a new site, and they weren't ranking even for things like Thai restaurant plus location and all of that. So they came into us, and we created pages, local pages for each one of those restaurants. We identified content gaps. We added quality content. We identified duplicate content issues. We fixed their technical, on-page, page speed, and all of that. Today, for most of their restaurants, sorry, not most, all of their restaurants, they're on page 1 of Google. I'm not saying number 1 rank, but some are on, like someone types in Thai food Zetlands or Thai food Norwest, Thai food Budina, Thai food The Rocks. They are on page 1, ranging from position 2 to position 7, or even 10 and 11. So all across. And the client has loved it so much so that they had stopped making investment in paid search because it was not working for them. So we've also started helping them with their paid search strategy now.
Wow.
And they're making a ton of money.
Yeah, I bet they are. Especially during COVID, where it's been all about the takeaway food. So what perfect timing and great results. Sid, thank you so much for that. I did have so many more questions to ask you. I think we might have to do
round
episode 2. That's right.
Love that.
Of this, because there's still so many questions that I'm curious about. But thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us today. I've certainly learned a lot. I love hearing some of the stories about where this has all kind of come from, and how this has evolved, this space has evolved. And it sounds like that you guys have been there and in that space for a very long time. So everybody, I encourage you to reach out to Sid on LinkedIn and request that digital marketing little handbook there. I'm sure that will be full of lots of goodies. And you can also go and type in to Google Bruce Clay to see more about what Sid's business is all about and how he might be able to help you if this episode has perhaps prompted you to think about SEO and amplifying your business in that way. But thank you so much for that, Sid. Really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to round 2.
Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Okay, so SEO sounds pretty vital if you want to achieve and sustain a ranking on page 1 of Google. This is of particular importance if you sell your products and services outside of your geographic region, and also if you are in a competitive market. So my takeaways from this great discussion with Sid were, firstly, SEO will take a bit of time to kick in. It's a long game, so plan for that in your marketing. And maybe while you're waiting for your website to rank, it might be worth considering an additional spend in your Google pay-per-click activity, so paying for Google ads to expedite your page 1 rankings for your key search terms. Secondly, I was really interested to hear his numbers on the percentage of clicks on page 1, so how many people click on each listing on page 1 of Google, particularly the difference between the paid clicks, which was 15 to 40%, and then the organic listing clicks, which was the 60 to 80%. And those organic listings can really only be achieved if your website is being ranked by Google, of which, as Sid said, SEO is necessary for. Even the difference between being position number 7 on page 1 and just getting 6% of clicks, and the position being in the position of number 10 on page 1 and getting the 2% of clicks. So it, obviously makes such a difference in terms of where you actually rank on that page 1. And, as Sid said, if you're ranking on page 2, forget it. Thirdly, the third takeaway for me is the understanding the reason for sustaining an SEO effort. There are so many factors out of our control in small business. We can't control what the competition does, and we can't control what Google does with their algorithm. So this means that in this world, nothing is set and forget. If we want a continued flow of traffic to our website coming from people who are searching for what we sell, then we need to make sure our website is optimized for this search traffic, so that essentially that it finds us. If you're enjoying all of the small business marketing insight that is being shared out on the How to Do Marketing show, please be sure to hit subscribe and leave a rating and review. Also, we'd love for you to join in the discussions about small business marketing in the How to Do Marketing group on Facebook. I'm in the group all the time answering people's questions and publishing snackable marketing tips. So join us. Just go to Facebook and search for the How to Do Marketing group. And if you'd like to sign up to receive regular small business marketing tips delivered straight to your inbox, head on over to dragonflymarketing.com.au. Until next time, happy marketing.